All right, everybody, how are we doing today? So, in this video, I'm going to be going over day one, obviously, of the Florida Panthers in free agency. We'll talk about the guys that we got, a couple of the guys that we lost. Talk about the Duclair move. We got a lot of things to cover, and I'm just gonna go with it. And however long we end up here, that's how long we're gonna end up. Before we get started, do me a favor. I appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. I normally am not somebody who likes to ask about that stuff. We've lost a lot of subscribers since the end of the season. And if I have another week like I had last week, I'm going to be below 7,000 again, which would be awfully embarrassing. So if you are not subscribed, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show the guys that we signed. I'm going to go over the new guys. Okay, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of Bill Zito's comments. I'll probably intertwine that with talking about each individual guy. And then after that, we'll talk a little bit about Duclair and the guys that we've lost. And then I'm going to show you at the end, I've got my way too early. Yeah, way too early. I wouldn't even call it lines predictions or anything like that. I would just say that with the roster as it is, this is my suggestions. I wouldn't even call it predictions. So without further ado, we've got a lot. We've got a lot here for a Sunday morning. I'm happy about that. Okay. So here's the overall. Now this is all, everything I'm discussing right here now is before the Duke trade. So Nico Mikkola, 3 years, 2.5 per. Oliver Ekman-Larsson for 1 year at 2.25. Anthony Stolarz, 1 year, 1.1 million. Kevin Stenlund, 1 year, 1 million. Mike Reilly, 1 year, 1 million. Dmitry Kulikov, 1 year, 1 million. And we re-signed Yanasenko for 2 years at 775. And Lucas Carlson for 1 year at 775. And his is a two-way deal. So let's just jump right into talking a little bit about the new guys. Now, first guy is Nico Mikkola, 6'4" defender. He's a defenseman, 6'4", 209 pounds, 27 years old. The interesting thing is, as even though he's 27 years old, if you see here, he's only got 170 career NHL games. So he's barely just played over 2 seasons worth. And last year, he played 81 games. So here's the thing. Everybody wants to say, this is our Gudas replacement. Now, this is where some of what Bill Zito was talking about in his press conference comes into play. Basically, what Zito alluded to is, yes, this is a big, strong defenseman. Yes, you would look at it and think Gudas replacement, but not necessarily in terms of, what Gudas brought to the room, okay? And Mikkola is not going to run around and just be hitting people kind of like Gudas would. So they're obviously different players, but clearly this is a guy who, and Zito alluded to this, he is he's the prototypical stay-at-home type of defender. Now, what he also did mention was that he reached out to a not to be named NHL superstar and asked that player how he felt about Mikkola, and the player told him, I hated playing against him because he's so big and he has such a long reach, that this player said, even if it looked like I was going to have room to make a move, it would never happen because his reach and his size is so big that whoever this player was, would get extraordinarily frustrated. So that was, he was the main one. I think he was the only one with a multi-year deal. Well, Carlson got 2 years. Or no, Yanasenko got 2 years. Everybody else is all 1 years. All 1 year deal except for Mikkola. And Zito again alluded to the fact that we'd like him to come in and kind of weave himself into being part of the core. So I like the signing. Look, a lot of you were on the live stream yesterday. You know, everything is an emotional reaction when it immediately happens, and then you sleep on it and you look at it in its entirety. We'll talk about Gudas at the back because I don't want to get off on that tangent. But for what we needed on the back end, I definitely like this signing, and I think that we're going to be happy that we got this guy. Okay, the next one up is Oliver Ekman-Larsson. He doesn't need a whole lot of introduction. Everybody kind of knows who he is. 902 career games, 439 points in 902 games. So he's basically a half a point a player. Zito's already basically answered the question that it would make sense that he would be running the power play with Ekblad and Montour back. One thing I would like to stress is that in the past, when Ekblad has been injured and we've had guys filling in for him and we've done well, and then Ekblad comes back and it screws everything up. So my desire would be, we already know the power play has needed some kind of a change. It needed some kind of an infusion of new personnel, right? Because it's, for the most part, been the same guys trying to run the power play for a number of years, and it's been all over the place. So what I'm hoping happens, I'm hoping Larsson comes in, runs the power play so well when Ekblad is gone that there's no need to change things, and Larsson basically steals the job from Ekblad. Now, I know some people said Larsson didn't look all that well yet last year, but look, we have seen it time and time again. All these guys come here, and it's almost like the career gets a rebirth. I don't know if it's the warm weather and the sunshine. I don't know if it's the beaches and the bikinis. But whatever it is, it's something. Because just veteran guy after veteran guy, I mean, Radko Gudas massively increased his value and reputation in the years that he was here. So, you know, again, Larsson was probably the biggest name out of the guys that we got. We were never going to get somebody like Orlov. We don't have the money for that. I'm going to talk about that as well. I'm going to talk about some of the things that at least one specific other Eastern Conference team did. But again, considering the fact that these moves would have really been nice if Ekblad and Montour were not going to be hurt. But considering the fact that they're going to be out a while and then losing Gudas, this is another low-risk signing. It's 1 year. Right? It's 1 year. So, again, this is another deal that I like. Now, next one up is Anthony Stolarz. Now, this is very interesting. Okay. This is a goalie. 6'6", 243. I like it. Big. He's played 81 games. His record is 27-24-7. Career-wise, 2.93 with a .912 save percentage. Now, I think I got the rest of his stats here. Yeah. So he's bounced around the league a lot. Now, his best year was with Anaheim a couple years ago. A couple years ago, he was 23, 12, and 8 with a 2.67 and a .917 save percentage. Last year was not as good, 12, 5, and 6. But 373 and 899 on Anaheim. Now, on the surface, we all said this is the third goalie, right? Okay, you got Bob, you got Knight, you got Stolarz. Okay. But then yesterday in Zito's press conference, somebody alluded to that. So ask him, you said Spencer Knight's going to be back, so I assume Stolarz is the third goalie. And very... I don't want to use the word forcefully, but there was a meaning and a feeling behind Zito's word. He didn't snap at the guy, but as animated as Bill can get, he got. And what he said was, I said Spencer Knight would be back in the fall. I didn't say where he'd be. Okay? So, and he very he made that point very clear. I can't say the word. You know what I'm alluding to. You know what I'm saying. He wanted to stress that, I said Spencer Knight was going to be back, but I didn't say where he was going to be. Whatever the hell that means. We could talk about that for an hour, so I'm not going to do that. Now, Zito did say, all of these positions, the best players are going to play. I would be highly, highly, highly shocked if Spencer Knight didn't win the job. But what I sensed in Zito, when he said that, I sensed some irritation. I sensed some irritation there. I sensed a disappointment, an irritation, maybe in Spencer Knight there a little bit. Okay, that's just my personal opinion. That don't just take that as with a grain of salt. That's kind of what I picked up off of it. Okay, but I mean, Spencer Knight's got a $4.5 million deal. I'm not even going to get into the whole thing if we would have to send him down to the AHL. I'm not even going to get into that because that's just not worth discussing all of those possibilities. I think he's a little bit irritated with Knight, and I think maybe what he's attempting to do there is put some pressure on Knight and not just say, well, yeah, Spencer Knight's he's the guy, right? He's going to be he's just not going to give him the job. Spencer Knight is going to have to earn it. Now, I don't understand. I believe Alex Lyon got 2 years, and that might be the only difference. But Lyon actually got a little bit less money than we gave Stolarz. So the only thing that I can assume is that Zito kind of agrees with us as a fan base in that Lions glove side got exposed in the playoffs, and he wanted to go in a different direction as a backup. Other than that, now Stolar's career numbers are kind of similar to what Lyons was. So it was good for Lyon. He gets an opportunity elsewhere. I'm gonna assume this is gonna be our third goalie, but this little thing in the back of my mind, this little gnawing thing. And you guys know I get these little things, and sometimes I talk about players that you guys are like, why you like this guy? But I can't get Matt Guzda. Don't just throw him under the bus yet. Okay? He's a big guy. And I don't know. I don't have any, like you guys know how I say, I don't have any hockey reasons. I haven't watched the guy play. I just have a feeling. All right? Like I liked Owen Tippett, right? Okay? It's kind of like that. Like I like Lucas Carlson, okay? This guy Guzda, I don't know. I just got a feeling that he may, in the long run, in the long term, that I have a feeling he may actually end up being the guy whenever we get out of cap hell, which I guess I'll bring that part up now that Zito was talking about. He was talking about how we're in a tight situation with the cap. And I'll talk about this more at the back end of the video. But he said, I think we're going to be there for a while. I think we're going to be there in this position, in this cap position for a while, which kind of almost confirms to me what I was saying yesterday and what I've been getting the feeling of, which is after this run that Bob went on in the playoffs, I have a feeling we're going to let Bob play out his contract here. I mean, maybe we might get to the last year and buy him out, but it sounded to me like Bill Zito is like, Bob's going to be here a while, basically, because that's why we're in a cap hit. That's why we're in this cap crunch. Let's be honest about it. And, his eyes got big. So I think, we're going to be in this way for a while. So I have a feeling that they may just let Bob play out his whole freaking contract. And even if we have to have him, even if he declines and he ends up the backup in the back end of the deal, we've gone through so much hell with Luongo's retirement and getting rid of Yandel and what we've had to go through to get rid of Dave Bolin. We've gone through so much hell as a franchise because we wanted to get rid of contracts that I think Zito might just be in the spot, be like, you know what, screw it. We signed him. He's here. It is what it is. I have a feeling he's going to finish his career here. All right, let's move on to the next player. Okay. Who's the next guy? All right, this is Kevin Stenlund. Another big guy. He's a center. 6'5", 215. He's only 26 years old. Now, he's only got 54 games of NHL experience. Okay, and what's he got? A grand total of 29 points. No, excuse me. He played 54 games last year. He's got 125 games of NHL experience. He's got 29 points in 125 games. However, he's a center, and I want to show you what I noticed immediately when we got him. Right here, last year, 53% in the faceoff circle. So you see with Columbus, he had a few years, played some games, right? He was 40%. Then he was 47%. Then I don't know what happened in 21-22, but he only played 3 games. And then last year with Winnipeg, 54 games, only 9 points, but 53% in the faceoff circle. So when you see a guy that's improving like that, okay, as your fourth line center, now, obviously, this is most likely going to be the guy that replaces Eric Stahl. Obviously, he's not a big scorer. He's not going to get you a lot of goals, but to do the job of the fourth line center, whoa, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to go back to do the job of the fourth line center. 6'5", 215. And again, it's just a 1-year deal, right? It's just so what Zito talked about a lot in his press conference was we're giving these guys an opportunity to be part of the group and show what they can do. So I believe, and you'll see with my lineup, you'll see where I've got him slotted in, and I'll explain why. So there's his stats. Who's next up? Mike Reilly. This is a guy that actually, it's interesting. Raven was on the stream with us yesterday, and as you know, he's a Boston Bruins fan, which, by the way, I should have the Boston Bruins fan reaction to the season out this week. That should happen. So Mike Reilly's a defenseman, 6'1", 196. Now, and he's 29 years old. Raven on the stream actually brought him up as somebody that the Panthers should look at, and about a half hour later, we signed him. So good job there, Raven. 339 games, okay, 98 points, nothing fancy schmancy. I think this is one of those depth guys here, okay, but we needed guys. He's got some NHL experience. From what I've heard from others, and especially from Raven, good player. There's no real knock on the guy. He's just a guy that can come in and eat some minutes for you and isn't going to be anything, he's not going to win you a cup, okay? But he's a guy where most likely if he ends up being, 6, 7, 8D, if somebody gets hurt, you can slot him in and he can help you. Here's Reilly's stats. So if you see, he has played parts of a lot of seasons, okay? Starting in 2015, this is the number of games played: 29, 17, 38, 19, 57, 14, 30, 40, 15. He played 70 games with Boston last season, and then he was in the AHL, from what Raven told me, he played 70 games for Boston in 21-22. And then last year, he was in the AHL. So, again, he's a guy that might even be bounced around back and forth with the AHL, probably somebody that would clear waivers. So, clearly just a depth add there, but with injuries and whatnot that might go on, okay, you need guys that are experienced veteran players that aren't going to cost you a lot of money, that can come in and do the job. All right. Next up, who's this? Now, this guy, I've never heard of him before. Dmitry Kulikov. What's funny about this is that probably about an hour before this happened, I cracked a joke on the stream. I said, just bring back Kulikov and Gabranson and fix the mess that we started all those years ago, right? Because I found it hysterical that after all these years, what we were needing was big, strong defensemen. And then here you go, we got Kulikov. So, as you know, 6'1", 201. He's 32 years old. Don't need to really go over his stats a whole ton with the exception of 872 games played. So that means if he sticks next year and if he plays, he might be able to get to his 1,000th game with the Panthers, just depending on how he plays. And I tell you what, Bill Zito was happy about this one. If you watched that press conference, Zito was definitely happy about this one. He kind of feels like Kulikov can slide in anywhere. I agree with that. He can slide in anywhere, play with anybody. He's got his strong points and his weak points. Again, I doubt that we're going to win the Cup next year with Dmitry Kulikov, but it could happen. It could happen. You see what I'm saying? So again, it's just a lot of different guys so that, look, without Ekblad, without Montour, if Kulikov and Bailey are the guys that can get it done, they'll play. If it needs to be Karlsson and Kulikov, they'll play. If it needs to be Karlsson and Mikkola, that's who's going to play. We got enough guys to where the competition should raise the level of play of some of these players. Now, okay, that's it. That is it for the new guys. Now, before I get to, I want to make sure here. That's it for the new guys in terms of the, I think I know I left one guy out, but I'm not sure if I gave myself, let me look up this one. I left out the last guy, the guy that we got for Duke. So just give me a second to get that up here. Steven Lorentz. Right. Okay. Let me get to him. Now, I'll just go ahead and share this page here real quick. Come on. All right, here we go. Here's the guy that we got for Duke. Steven Lorentz, 27 years old, 6'4", 206 pounds. Now, they say he's a center, okay, but he's also a lefty here. So you'll see what I have in mind for him. He's played 192 games. He's got 20 goals and 20 assists. All right, he was with San Jose. He started off Carolina, okay? Then he went to San Jose. And he had played 80 games, so he stayed healthy. All right. Good guy. 48% in the face-off circle. I don't know how many face-off, I don't know how many draws he took. But this is the guy that we got for Duke. So let me talk about that first. The Duke for Lorentz move. When I show you my lines in a couple of minutes, you might have a better understanding. Now, when it happened, as is the case with most things, which is why you guys watch, when it happened, I overreacted and I said, what? What? Because generally speaking, your top line right winger for a bottom line left winger is usually that's not even, okay? But we gained $2 million in salary cap that way. We got a 5th round pick, which big whoop, okay? But then as you start to look at the lineup and you start to look at the guys that we got, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. So as you guys know, if you watch the podcast and everything, I've not been against trading Duclair. We can't sign everybody, okay? We cannot sign everybody, right? We've talked about this ad nauseum. There's like 5 guys under contract for 24 or 25. Like everybody needs a contract. There's just no way you're going to pay everybody, okay? And the one thing I will say, I'll say this here now a little bit. It's funny because somebody on the stream last night, yesterday, was telling me, hey, the Panthers should be all in right now. Make the moves now. Stop worrying about 2-3 years from now. Well, that's how we got into the position we're in. And what do I mean? Well, number one, we went all in the year we won the President's Trophy, and so we blew all of our first-round picks and Owen Tippett. So we have nothing to work with in terms of giving teams assets for players. But I'd like to draw your attention to the Carolina Hurricanes, who absolutely cleaned up yesterday. They got Orlov. They were able to re-sign Jesper Fast, and they signed Bunting to a contract. Now, you look at them and you say, all they do is win. Now, we know that they haven't won a cup. We know they haven't won an Eastern Conference final game. I got that part. But ain't nobody wants to play the Canes. They're a massive pain in the ass to play against. And if they could ever score more than 2 goals a game, they might win a couple cups. However, and this is the thing. This is all there is, guys. Between Ranta and Anderson, they re-signed both guys. Okay? The combined salary of both of those guys combined is $4.9 million. Don't believe me? Don't believe me, right? I don't believe me. Let's do it. Carolina Hurricanes cap friendly. Frederik Andersen, $3.4 million cap hit for 2 years. Antti Ranta, signed him for 1 year, $1.5 million. So the combined cap hit of both goalies, mind you, on the Carolina Hurricanes, who are clearly going to be one of the favorites in the Eastern Conference Finals, in the Eastern Conference next year, is going to be $4.9 million. While we're paying Spencer Knight $4.5 to be the backup. We think we're paying him to be the backup. So by not looking ahead, and now this is not on Zito. Well, some of it is on Zito. So talk about all, it's just so much to get into here. What Carolina has done is they found themselves goalies. They got 2 goalies that can handle the load. I know they haven't made it yet, but neither has Bob, right? I mean, Bob made it to the finals, and then we all see what happened, okay? Carolina didn't lose to us last year because of goaltending. They've got the goaltending. But at the price point that they've got these guys, they can go out and sign an Orlov. I mean, that's just Orlov and Bunting. Put Orlov and Bunting on the Panthers, please. You see what I'm saying? So the fact that Carolina has structured their team that way, it hurts. So that's the point there, is that when you don't look 2 and 3 years ahead, that's what Dale Talon did. Bob and Knight, basically at the same time. It's like, well, wait, what? What did you do there? Right? Because as soon as Knight was immediately blocked. The situation that we have right now, where Spencer Knight needs to play to develop, right? We did that to ourselves by not really looking forward, because you don't sign Bob to a max deal if you're thinking that you're also going to draft a kid that's going to need to play to develop. I mean, what were we thinking? So sometimes not looking ahead into the future can hurt you. And the other thing is, Zito has talked about this ad nauseum, and I've said it's like a Jenga thing. With the contracts that we have to dish out next year, you have to look 2 and 3 years ahead. You have no choice at this point, because one wrong move, if you're not paying attention, the next thing you know, it's like, we can't afford Verhaeghe, right? We can't afford Bennett, right? We've got to sign these guys. We've got to do the best we can to keep the team together. So a lot of these 1-year deals are with that in mind. It's saying, hey, look, we can't give you 2, and I think that's what happened to Alex Lyon, because we don't know what the situation is going to be. in terms of who's going to be on the team and what the contracts and all that are going to look like. The salary cap is supposed to go up somewhere like between 4 and 6 million. So there's so much to consider there. And in terms of the Spencer Knight thing, look, I'll be honest, right? Okay, if you listen to what I said in the year before he got his contract, I said I think what's going to happen is Spencer Knight's management's going to go to the Panthers and say, if you'd like to keep us, we want to be paid based upon what we feel Spencer Knight would be getting paid if he could play and develop. And Zito said yes, clearly, okay? I mean, nobody's paying their backup goalie $4.5 million. The Canes aren't even paying their starter $4.5 million. So while I agree with what Zito did, in hindsight, because of Spencer Knight's issues, it looks like we both were wrong. Now, week 2 of the season, Bob could hurt himself. Spencer Knight could come in and become Andrei Vasilevsky and be like, okay, I guess it was right. But right now, the $4.5 million that we're paying to Spencer Knight is almost just as much of a problem as the $10 million that we're paying to Bob. When you look at the salary structure of some of these other teams, how in the hell are we supposed to compete? Exactly what Zito said. We're going to be in this spot for a while where every single year we are going to lose guys that we don't want to lose. And we're going to have to sign bargain players who we feel, who Zito feels can fill a role and elevate their level of play by being surrounded by the rest of the good players that we do have. And that's because we're paying the goaltenders $14.5 million a year. Now, I reiterate, when the second that Spencer Knight signed that deal, all the bells and whistles in my gut and my head, it all went off and said, there's no way we're going to spend $14.5 million on goalies. The second that deal was signed, you guys know I talked about it, I made a video, I said, he's got to be planning on moving on from Bob. I remain convinced that was the plan. And now, when you take how Bob played at the end of in the playoffs, combine it with Spencer Knight's issues, he's stuck. But I really, really feel, coming off the previous years, I really feel like Zito felt like we're going to let Bob play one more year, which was last year, and then try to move him and have Spencer Knight be the guy. Remember, we were not expecting to win this past year, right? We knew the situation that we had. We were not expecting, Zito and management. They were looking to continue to build things. So we're in it now. There's nothing for it now. And we'll just have to see how it all plays out. But when you look at a team like Carolina and you see the value that they're getting at that position, at the goalie position, short of winning a cup, and honestly, short of winning multiple cups, but at least a cup, right? There's no way you're going to look at our goalie position and say we're getting a value. It's just a rocky situation. All right, I'm going to move on to my line suggestions. The other thing is Gudas. I guess before I move on to that, I'll talk about Gudas. I wasn't happy. I'm not happy, but I get it. Now, we don't know. We don't know what the conversations were. From what I've been told, we never officially offered him a contract, but I think basically from what Zito kind of alluded to, it sounded like Gudas had a number and we couldn't meet it. And from the looks of the contracts that we gave up, I wouldn't be surprised if we even wanted him to take a pay cut rather than get a big raise. Now I know he went to Anaheim, so he's going to pay some more taxes and everything like that. But there's no way we could pay him 4, and even continuing to pay him 3, considering the circumstances of all of the injuries that we had, that was going to be dicey. Now, I think that's why we didn't offer him a deal. Like, it's if you're talking to him and he says, I'm going to need 4, you could tell him on the phone, well, we could give you 3. It's not really a contract offer. I think this one might have surprised Zito a little bit in the sense that it happened so quick. And, I think if Anaheim offers 3 years at $3 million, maybe Gudas says, hey, can you match that? But he knew we couldn't match $4 million. A little bit disappointed that Gudas went for the money, but I get it, right? This is going to be his last contract, and who knows what we could have paid. Maybe we said, hey, we can only give you, if you want to stay and try to win the cup, we can only give you a 2-year deal at $2.5 million per, and then you're talking about Gudas, losing a lot more money than he would have, So I don't like it. I don't know many people that do like it. It's tough. You go to like these guys. You know what I mean? Just Barkov and Gudas doing that thing after all the wins and everything. That one's gonna hurt the locker room. Now, I'm not saying the locker room's gonna fall apart. This is not Stu Barnes. Okay, this is not that. But he's going to be missed. He's going to be missed. It sucks, man. It sucks, and it goes back to the goalie. It goes back to those goalie contracts. It just is what it is, man. All right, so I am going to now present to you my my July 2nd line suggestions, assuming these are the guys, right? By the time I upload this, I probably got 1 million texts. We traded this one for that one, and everything I'm saying doesn't make any. In fact, I'm going to check my phone. No, my phone is not blown up, so we haven't made any trades. All right. Oh, I got to get it on. Hold on, let me load it up here. I got to get to this. Okay, now these are the lines loosely suggested based on the players that we have now. I didn't make this team. I didn't, these are, let me just bring it up. Okay. There it is. All right. Barkov, and don't even talk to me about righty-lefty because we just don't have enough righties to make it work. Okay? So I know all the righty-lefty stuff, right? We just don't have the guys. Barkov with Reinhart and Lundell. Okay? Barkov and Lundell have chemistry. Reinhart and Lundell have chemistry. All right? Bennett with Verhaeghe and Tkachuk. Okay? Now we get to the third line, and this is where people are going to say, what are you smoking? And I'm going to say, well, what else you want us to do? Luosterainen in the middle, I like. Now, Denisenko, I'm not married to that, but I have a feeling the kid's going to make the team, okay? And that's really the only viable spot for him to slot in. He's not really a fourth line guy. He's not going to be a top six guy. I think his ceiling at this point is a good functional third line player. And unless we get somebody else or somebody else, one of the other AHL guys, Samoskovich or somebody like that, in terms of experienced NHL players, it's Zach Dalpe, right? That's the only guy we have. I don't even know if we still have. I think he's still on the team. So the point is, as of right now, you're looking at that guy Lorentz and you're going, why in the hell do you have him on the third line on the left wing? Now that's what we all said about Mason Marchment. Okay? That's as we're talking about Mikkola being the Gudas replacement. I watched some film of this guy. The guy is huge, this guy Lorentz. Okay? Again, dude, 6'4", 206 pounds, 27 years old. He's got 40 points in 192 games. Last year, he played 80 games. He had 19 points. Okay? Now, he doesn't have a whole lot of a history there. He's only age 27. All right? However, let me get back over here. However, very, very similar in style and structure and experience to what Mason Marchment was when we got him. Okay? And just by default, when you look at the rest of the lineup, Stenlund with Lomberg and Cousins. I mean, to me, yeah, you could move Lomberg into Lorentz's spot, but I think it would be a better opportunity to give Lorentz the chance to develop into a Mason Marchment type of player. Okay? Now, some people might want to swap Lundell and Luostarinen in there. They might want to put Swaggy up on the top and put Lundell or Luostarinen on the second line. But as it stands right now, in terms of players that have played NHL games that we have as forwards, to me, these are the guys. Okay? And look, if we already know Cousins, like if Lorentz can't cut it, we already know Cousins is a viable guy that can play in the third line some. If Giannissenko can't cut it, all right, we know we can, put Cousins up there, maybe put Dalpe in the fourth line. And look, we're gonna get at least another guy, right? There's going to be veteran guys that get released, so this is not going to be the finished puzzle. But if we were starting the season today with the guys that we have, this is the lineup that I would ice. That's the lineup that I would ice. Now, in terms of the defense, I actually made two different defenses. The first one is going to be, and again, when they get to the defensive pairs, don't even with the righty-lefty thing, because we don't have the guys. Like we got two guys on the team that are right-handed or something. I know it might be more than that, but not by much. Okay? Just everybody's a lefty, so it just is what it is. So I put together the possible pairs for when Lomberg and Montour are out, and then what I think the top four would be when they come back. So there you go. So to start the season, Forsling with Larsson, Mikkola with Kulikov, and then Bailey with either Mahura or Carlson. You could see the Bailey, Mahura, and Carlson, that trio, I honestly feel that is going to be 6, 7, 8D. You can mix and match them however you want to, however it's going to work out, okay? But in terms of our top four, when we start off the season next year, without Ekblad and without Montour, those are the guys with the most experience. End of discussion. In my opinion, that's what you go with as your top four until you start getting guys back. Those are the guys with the most experience. You can maybe make an argument to put Mahura up there if Kulikov isn't cutting it. Maybe Bailey surprises us. But based on everything we know right now, that's what I would go with. And then, of course, when they come back, I would go Forsling, Ekblad, Mikkola, Montour, and then who the hell knows what after that. And that's not in a bad way. Just if you had to pick between Kulikov, Bailey, Mahura, and Carlson as your bottom four, I suspect, or as your bottom pair, I suspect likely Kulikov will get one of those jobs, and then whoever was the best out of the rest would get 6D. But when you look at the starting of the season, Forsling with Larsson, Mikkola with Kulikov, I mean, maybe you want to swap those guys, right? Right? Because Forsling and Larsson are kind of, move a little bit better than Mikkola and Kulikov. I mean, you could swap them, but however you put it together, I would assume that's going to be our top four when we start the season, which I don't want to say good luck to us, but Bob better start the season on fire. That's what I'll say. One of those goalies, either Bob or Knight, better start the season ass on fire. Because even if you look at the names and say they're adequate defensemen, it's going to be all new pairs. They're going to have never played together before, right? I mean, the only guy that we can start the season together, the only guys that we can start the season together that would have even been on the ice at the same time before would be Forsling and Mahura, right? Like, those are the only guys we're going to start on defense that have been, I guess Forsling and Carlson have been on the ice together in the year before. But that's it. I mean, we don't even have two guys that have played together basically at all to start the season with. That, I don't care what the names on the back of the jerseys are. It's going to be a rough first 10, 20 games, especially the first 5, 10 games. Now, doesn't mean we have to sink, the ship has to sink. It doesn't mean that, okay? But, we're going to have to, it's a lot. It's a lot. And, what Maurice said after we lost the cup when he was at the podium, he said, we're going to have a hard time making the playoffs next year. Unless miracles happen and all these defensemen just get instant chemistry in camp, right? Okay? Unless that happens, we're going to be very much in the same type of arc as we were last year, where we're going to start slow and we're going to have to get better as we go and hope that, after the first 30, 40 games, however many games it takes for Ekblad and Montour to come back, we're going to have to hope that we're within striking distance. And that ain't going to be easy, okay? Boston, we'll get into some of the other things in subsequent videos this week during the podcast. I'll kind of look at some of what the other teams in the East has done. Carolina, though, holy crap. I mean, they cleaned up yesterday. They absolutely had a really good day yesterday. To get both goalies signed, to have continuity there. Carolina, but they're always tough to beat. And then they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they can't win a game. So somewhere in there, they're going to have to get over that hump. The fact that they got Bunting, that's going to be a pain in the ass, man. He's a good player. He's the type of guy I would have loved to have gotten him. But we can't. We have no more money to give to guys $3, $4, $5 million contracts, because the list of guys that we have to sign, and we're not going to keep everybody. So that's it. Let me make sure I got everything. I talked about Zito. I talked about the Duke thing. Good on San Jose. In hindsight, let's put it this way. We've made a lot of deals in the past. Remember, it was the 2-2s for Sam Bennett, right? Yeah, and we were like, 2-2s? What? Yeah, okay. And then look at how that's worked out. So Zito has consistently, year after year, had us scratching our heads going, who, what, huh? Right? I mean, who's this Mason Marchment guy? What? Who's? And then the next thing you know, we're all crying that we can't afford Mason Marchment. So I'm hoping, I'm crossing my fingers that this kid Lorentz, now I could be wrong, Zito could have something else envisioned for him, but I think that's Maurice's job, right? Zito went out and got a specific brand of player, and it's going to be up to Maurice where they all slot in. We've seen Nick Cousins. We know what he can do. He can bring you energy and he can make plays, but he can't finish, right? And this kid Lorentz, I don't know how much of an opportunity he's really had. if he can turn into what Mason Marchment was, that third line to go back to, being something similar to what it was in the President's Trophy season. And now, of course, this is all barring if we make any more moves. There's no money really to make any more. What do we got? $2.5, $3 million of cap, something like that. I mean, we traded away Duke, right? So if we're trading away Duke, who was making $3 million, we don't quite have $3 million left in cap. I don't think they're going to go out and get another. I mean, you can't get a player to replace Duke in that position at that cost, right? I mean, maybe if you were going to go after somebody for a 1-year deal. But I believe that, because I know even I thought there's got to be a second part to this deal coming. And then I started looking at Lorentz, and I started saying, we all cried when we lost Mason Marchment. I'm just saying, we all cried when we lost Mason Marchment, right? I mean, that kid on the ice with Eetu Luostarinen, I mean, that's a nice start to a third line if Lorentz can progress and develop, which seems to happen to the guys that come here, and that's the last part to it, right? I mean, these guys just keep coming here and getting better. When was the last time we got a player that was worse, that became worse? This is a really good question. When was the last time that we got a player, whether it be through trade or whatever, free agency, that ended up worse than they were as opposed to better? I can't think of it. I mean, even Colin White, who's not going to be on the team, but even he played better-ish. He certainly wasn't worse than he had been in the past, right? So it just seems like all of these guys that end up coming here, their level of play ends up elevated. So I'm not going to judge Lorentz based on what I've seen him do. I mean, he was with San Jose, all right? I mean, it's not exactly a great team, not going to be surrounded by great players. You put that kid with Eetu Luostarinen, and you might have some, or Lundell, right? I mean, you can move my lines around, maybe, Lundell, Luostarinen, Lorentz. Ooh, the L line, the triple L line. That would be a beast of a line. So I think these are the guys. Basically, that's what I'm saying. I think these are the guys. There might be a waiver wire pickup. There might be somebody under the radar. But it sounded like Zito wanted to make that move for some flexibility later on down the road. I can't imagine that we would trade another forward unless somebody's coming back, right? And at that point, do you want to do it? Like, we already lost Duke. To get Bertuzzi, check my phone again, make sure that hasn't happened. Nobody's texting me. That's good. If I saw some people wanting Bertuzzi, I had talked about that, but you'd have to ship out Reinhart. You would have to ship out Reinhart just to make room for Bertuzzi. I mean, different player. Is he an upgrade? I don't know. The talent level ceiling might be a little bit higher in Bertuzzi, but Reinhart, what is the one thing Sam Reinhart rarely does? What's the one thing Sam Reinhart rarely does? And that's get hurt. Okay, there's something to be said for that. Bertuzzi, hurt, right? Okay? So in order to make room for Bertuzzi, you'd have to clear Reinhart at this point. There's nobody else that's going to be traded that's making enough money to clear out. So at that point, you would have been losing Duke and Reinhart for Bertuzzi. I don't like that. I don't like that because Reinhart he's not a flashy player, but wherever you play him, he plays well. Yeah, he goes through those periods where he can't hit the friggin' net, and it's frustrating as hell. But he does so many other things on the ice And I don't know if we're going to be able to afford to keep him. I don't know how that situation is going to go. He's had a nice run of a contract at $6.5 million. So he might be a guy. I've talked about this. He might be a guy that might be willing to take a pay cut, to stay with the team. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I think these are the guys. The longer I've slept on it, I'm excited about this kid Lorentz. I hope you guys know I always like to be right. But this one I hope I'm right about. Like I was right about Owen Tippett, damn it. I think this kid could be the next Mason Marchment. So that's it. I keep thinking that I'm forgetting about something. No, we talked about Duke, talked about Lyon, talked about Gudas. We talked about all the guys. We've talked. It's almost an hour, so I think we're good enough. And then I'll upload it, and we'll make a move, and everything I said here is. That's okay. That's okay. Thank you, everybody who came out to the stream yesterday, by the way, especially Nerful and a couple of you keeping us updated on the moves, since I was one of the ones that my Twitter I could look at like 2 or 3 posts, and what I finally figured out was like I can scroll Twitter for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then it gives me the rate limit, whatever that crap is, and all I got to do is close out my browser, clean my cookies, and go back and log back in, and I get another 5 or 10 minutes of Twitter. Isn't that nice of Elon to let it? Don't get me started there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for today. Appreciate all the support. Like I said, make sure you hit that subscribe button, share the video, hit the like button, leave me comments, leave me nasty messages. It's all good. All the interaction is good. Fluffy and I are now going to, it's too hot, too humid. We got to do lawn work. Got to do lawn work today. It's supposed to rain later. There's no smoke today. That's good. There's no smoke today. So we'll take that as a blessing. All right, everybody. Appreciate all the support. And if anything happens worth going live for, which I don't think is happening right now, but if it happens, it happens. So I'll see you guys later.